Farmer leaves obese wife with 3 pigs. Figure it out, that's your inheritance. Eleanor stared in disbelief at the 3 pigs sniffing the dusty road. 22 years of marriage had ended with a suitcase thrown on the ground and the coldest words she'd ever heard. "These 3 pigs are all you'll get from me. Figure it out," said Richard, adjusting his sunglasses as the city girl smiled from the passenger seat of the pickup truck. "I'm tired of supporting someone who's good for nothing." The engine roared, kicking up a cloud of dust that made Eleanor cough. She stood there, clutching her old floral-patterned suitcase as the sound of the vehicle faded around the bend. The evening silence was broken only by the grunts of the animals that were now her only companions. One of the pigs, the largest, approached and pressed its wet snout against her leg. For a moment, she wanted to kick the creature, but something in its eyes stopped her. It was as if it understood they'd both been abandoned. "Now what?" she whispered to herself, looking around. The house she'd lived in for over 2 decades was no longer hers. Richard had made it clear she had 1 hour to gather her things and leave. The nearest neighbors lived 2 kilometers away, and she didn't even have money for a ride to town. The sun was beginning to set when Eleanor realized she needed to make a decision. She couldn't stay on the road all night. She looked at the pigs again. 2 were females and 1 was male, all about 2 years old. "At least you didn't abandon me," she murmured, feeling her eyes well up. She grabbed the suitcase handle and started walking down the dirt road. The pigs followed naturally, as if they knew they were now an unlikely family. The walk to town would take hours, but it was her only option. When darkness swallowed the path, Eleanor spotted a faint light coming from a small building by the roadside. It was an old gas station, its convenience store already closed. In the back stood an open barn where they usually stored farm equipment. "Ma'am, are you all right?" asked a young man stepping out from behind the station, lighting a cigarette. She hesitated, unsure how to explain her situation. "I need a place to stay tonight. I'll pay tomorrow." The young man looked at the pigs, then at her. He couldn't have been more than 25, with dark hair and a friendly demeanor. "I'm Tyler. I work the night shift here. You can use the barn, but I can't charge you without talking to my boss." "Thank you," Eleanor replied, feeling immense relief. Tyler helped her set up a makeshift corner with some old tarps. The pigs settled near her, as if wanting to protect her. That night, Eleanor barely slept. Silent tears fell as she replayed the last few months in her mind. Richard had changed after their daughter Jennifer got married and moved to Chicago. He started going out more, coming home late, and when she asked where he'd been, he'd snapped that he was handling business at the farmers' cooperative. The truth was, Eleanor had always known she wasn't the kind of woman Richard truly wanted. She'd struggled with her weight since she was young, and over the years it only got worse. He never said it outright, but his looks of disgust and comments about other women made it clear. When Jennifer called to say she was pregnant, Eleanor was overjoyed at the idea of being a grandmother, but Richard barely showed interest. Around that time, she began noticing him whispering on the phone and leaving more often. She discovered the affair 3 weeks before he left her. Eleanor had gone to the cooperative to bring Richard the lunch he'd forgotten at home. That was when she saw him hugging Amber, the new secretary who had arrived from the state capital a few months ago. Amber was 28, slender, blonde, and wore tight clothes that accentuated her figure. Everything Eleanor was not, and never would be. In that moment, she realized her marriage had been over for a long time. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. Dawn brought an even harsher reality. Eleanor woke up to the pigs grunting from hunger and realized she had nothing to feed them. Tyler showed up with a cup of coffee and some leftover bread from the diner. "How long are you planning to stay here?" he asked, glancing worriedly at the animals. "I don't know. I need to figure out what to do with these pigs first. There's Mr. Wilson's butcher shop in town. Maybe he'd be interested." The suggestion made Eleanor's chest tighten. The idea of selling the animals for slaughter bothered her, but what other options did she have? She needed money urgently and couldn't keep caring for 3 pigs without a place to live. She decided to walk to town, leaving the animals in the barn under Tyler's care. The 2-hour walk under the scorching sun left her exhausted, but she had to resolve her situation. The butcher shop was on Main Street, an old building with white tiles and a refrigerated counter full of meat. Wilson was a heavy-set man in his 50s who had known her since childhood. "Hey, Eleanor, what a surprise. How's Richard?" "We divorced," she lied. It was easier than explaining the truth. "He left me 3 pigs, and I need to sell them." Wilson scratched his graying beard and thought for a moment. "How old are they?" "About 2 years." 2 years? He grimaced. "Eleanor, pigs that old don't have tender meat anymore. Folks here prefer piglets or at most a year old. But they must be worth something." "Well, sure, but not much. $100 for all 3 tops. $100. That was all her life had come down to. Eleanor felt tears threatening to spill again, but swallowed them back. "Let me think about it, and I'll come back." She left the butcher shop with no clear destination. The small rural Illinois town where she'd been born and raised now felt strange and hostile. Some people greeted her, but she could see the nosy curiosity in their eyes. They already knew something. That's when she ran into Mrs. Roberts, her old neighbor, in the town square. "Eleanor, sweetheart, I heard about Richard." She trailed off, seeing the pain on her friend's face. "He left me, Mrs. Roberts. Kept the farm and gave me 3 pigs as my share." Mrs. Roberts, a white-haired woman in her 70s, hugged Eleanor warmly. "That man was always no good. I remember when you two got married. I never thought he was worth much. And now, I have no money, no home, just 3 old pigs no one wants to buy. Come with me. Let's have some coffee and talk properly." They sat at a small cafe on the square. Mrs. Roberts ordered coffee and sugar bread for both. "Eleanor, do you remember your father's farm?" "Of course, but Richard sold it years ago." "Sold it?" Mrs. Roberts's eyes widened. "Eleanor, your father left that land in your name. I know because I was there when he signed the will at the county clerk's office." The world seemed to spin around Eleanor. Her father had passed 15 years ago, leaving a small rural property about 6 miles from town. Richard had always said they sold it to pay off debts, but she'd never seen the paperwork. "Mrs. Roberts, are you sure?" "Absolutely. In fact, Mr. Thompson mentioned last week that he saw movement there, said someone's taking care of the animals." "What animals?" "I'm not sure, but if the land is yours, you should go check it out." Eleanor felt a mix of anger and hope. If the farm really was hers, it meant Richard had deceived her all these years, but it also meant she might have a place to go with the pigs. "Mrs. Roberts, can you lend me money for a bus ticket? I promise I'll pay you back as soon as I sort this out." "Of course, dear. And more than that, I'm coming with you." The two took the bus that ran to the rural road. Along the way, Eleanor tried piecing together the puzzle. If the farm was hers, why had Richard lied? What was he hiding? When they got off at the nearest stop, they still had to walk 2 kilometers down a dirt road. As they got closer, Eleanor recognized every tree, every bend in the path. This was where she'd spent her childhood, playing under the apple trees and helping her father with the animals. The first thing they saw was smoke rising from the house chimney. Someone really was living there. Eleanor's heart raced. "Mrs. Roberts, what if it's a trespasser?" "Let's find out." They walked up to the main gate. The property looked very different from how Eleanor remembered. There were new chicken coops, a well-tended vegetable garden, and a pen with a few dairy cows. Everything was neat and orderly. Then a man appeared on the porch. He was tall, thin, with graying hair, and looked to be in his 60s. He wore simple work clothes and carried a bucket. "Can I help you?" he asked, stepping closer. "I'm Eleanor, daughter of William Johnson, who owned this land." The man stopped and studied her for a moment. "William's daughter? Richard said you died in an accident." "Richard? You know my ex-husband?" "Of course. I'm Walter. He hired me to take care of the farm 5 years ago. Said the previous owner's daughter had passed, and he needed someone to keep the place running." Eleanor's legs went weak. Richard's lie was far bigger than she'd imagined. "Walter, this farm is mine. My father left it to me in his will." "What do you mean?" "Richard pays me every month to take care of it. Said he bought the land from the family after—" "He lied, Mrs." Roberts interrupted. "This young woman is the rightful owner and just found out her husband deceived her." Walter took off his hat and scratched his head, clearly confused. "Look, I don't know anything about that. All I know is every month Richard comes here, takes the money from the milk and egg sales, pays me a pittance and leaves." "What money from sales?" "The farm does well. We have 10 dairy cows, 200 laying hens, a garden that supplies 2 markets in town. Brings in about $3,000 a month in net profit." Eleanor nearly fainted. All these years, while she'd been asking Richard for money to buy clothes or medicine, he'd been profiting from her property. "Walter, can I see the papers Richard gave you?" "Sure, they're in the house." They went into the small building Eleanor knew so well. The house was simple but clean, with basic furniture and a few photos of Walter's family. He brought out a folder with documents. "Here's the contract he had me sign." Eleanor read it. It was a farm management agreement listing Richard as the owner and Walter as the employee, but there was no deed or proof of purchase. "Walter, do you have family?" "Yes, my wife Martha and my son Tommy. They're in town today shopping." "And are you happy here?" "Very much. It's the best job I've ever had. We care for the land with love and it bears fruit." Eleanor looked out the window. She saw the cows grazing peacefully, the chickens pecking in the farmyard, the lush, well-tended garden. Walter had turned the property into a thriving small farm business. "Walter, if I can prove this land is mine, would you like to keep working here? But as a partner, not an employee." "What do you mean?" "You'll manage everything, oversee production, and we'll split the profits, 50-50. Walter's eyes lit up. "Are you serious, Mom?" "I am. But first, I need to sort out the legal matters." Mrs. Roberts stepped closer. "Eleanor, let's go to the county clerk's office tomorrow to check your father's documents. If we prove you're the rightful owner, we might even sue Richard for fraud." On the way back to town, Eleanor felt a mix of anger and relief. Anger at Richard's betrayal and lies, relief at discovering she might not be as helpless as she'd thought. But she still had to deal with the immediate problem of the 3 pigs waiting for her at the gas station, and she didn't even have enough money to feed herself properly. Back at the gas station, Tyler looked worried. "Mrs. Eleanor, the pigs got restless after you left, and there's something odd." "What?" "One of the females has a slightly swollen belly. Do you think she might be pregnant?" Eleanor examined the animal more closely. There was definitely something different about the smaller pig. If she were pregnant, it would change everything. "Tyler, do you know much about animals?" "A little. My grandpa had a small farm." "How can I tell if she's expecting?" "Only by calling a vet, but around here the only one is Dr. Catherine, and she charges a lot." Eleanor sighed. Another expense she couldn't afford. But if the pig really was pregnant, it might be worth the investment. "How much does she charge?" "About $200 just to come out here." $200. Money she didn't have. She thought about borrowing from Mrs. Roberts, but already felt too humiliated. That's when Tyler had an idea. "Mrs. Eleanor, what if you trade work for the visit? Dr. Catherine has a place nearby. Maybe she'd accept some help in exchange." "What kind of work could I offer?" "Can't you cook, clean, tend a garden?" Of course she could. She'd spent 22 years taking care of Richard's home, cooking for the farmhands, keeping everything tidy, but she'd never thought of those skills as valuable. "Do you think it'll work?" "Worth a try." "I'll call her." Tyler spoke on the phone for a few minutes, then returned, smiling. "It's settled. She'll come by tomorrow morning. In exchange, you'll help clean her office and make lunch for her family for a week." "A whole week?" That's what she asked. But she said if the pig really is pregnant, she might be able to help more. That night, Eleanor slept a little better. For the first time in weeks, she felt hope that things might improve. The pigs seemed to sense her change in mood and grew calmer too. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us newcomers a lot. Now, back to the story. Dr. Catherine arrived promptly at 9 the next morning. She was a woman in her 40s, with brown hair tied in a ponytail, dressed in practical vet attire. Her manner was firm, but kind. "All right, let's take a look at this pig," she said, pulling on rubber gloves. The exam took about 20 minutes. Catherine felt the pig's belly, checked a few signs, and jotted notes on a clipboard. Eleanor, I have good news and bad news. Which do you want first? The bad. This pig isn't pregnant. She has an intestinal inflammation that could get serious if untreated. Eleanor's heart sank. And the good news? The other female is expecting, and by the looks of it, there are about 6 piglets in there. The emotional roller coaster nearly knocked Eleanor over. One pig sick, the other pregnant, and she couldn't properly care for either. How much will it cost to treat the sick one? About $300 in medication. But I can get the medicine cheaper if you agree to work another week for me. What about the pregnant one? Will she need special care? Yes, the birth should happen in about 15 days. If there are any complications, I'll have to do a C-section. Eleanor sat on an old crate and buried her face in her hands. The situation was getting more complicated by the minute. Doctor, can I ask you something personal? Of course. Do you really need someone to work for 2 weeks, or are you doing this out of pity for me? Dr. Catherine stopped packing her equipment and looked straight at Eleanor. Eleanor, I'll be honest. My husband and I are thinking of opening a rural inn on our farm. We want someone experienced in home cooking and cleaning to help us get everything organized. If you agree, it could be longer than 2 weeks. How so? I'm offering a partnership. You contribute your knowledge in household management and we provide the structure. We can split the inn's profits. For the second time in 2 days, Eleanor was being offered a partnership. Was it a coincidence, or did she really have skills she didn't value? But what about the pigs? Bring them along. The farm has plenty of space. And when the sow gives birth, we can use the piglets as an attraction for kids visiting with their parents. The offer was tempting, but Eleanor was still processing the discovery about her father's farm. Doctor, can I give you an answer in a few days? I have some legal matters to sort out first. Of course, but don't take too long. The holiday season starts in December, and we want to open before then. After Dr. Catherine left, Eleanor sat deep in thought. 2 opportunities had appeared out of nowhere. Walter offering a partnership in the farm that was rightfully hers, and Dr. Catherine offering a partnership in the inn. Maybe Richard's abandonment was the push she needed to discover her true potential. Tyler showed up at lunchtime with a takeout meal left over from the diner. Mrs. Eleanor, my boss wants to talk to you. With me? Why? I don't know. He just asked me to tell you to come to his office. The owner of the gas station was Mr. Sullivan, a friendly, pot-bellied man in his 50s. He received her in a small room behind the convenience store. Eleanor, Tyler told me about your situation. I also heard you're William Johnson's daughter. You knew my father? Very well. He sold me fuel for the farm for years. He was an honorable man. Mr. Sullivan, do you want me to leave? On the contrary, I want to make you an offer. Eleanor was starting to wonder if she was dreaming. 3 offers in 2 days was too much. What kind of offer? I'm thinking of expanding the gas station, adding a bigger diner, selling homemade goods for travelers. I need someone who knows how to cook well and manage things. And I fit that profile? Tyler told me you made some cornbread muffins last night with the leftover flour here. He said he's never tasted anything so good. Eleanor remembered making simple cornbread muffins when hunger struck. It was nothing special, just her grandmother's recipe. Mr. Sullivan, I've been getting several offers. Can I think about it? Of course, but no, I'm serious. Business here is good. Lots of cars pass through from Chicago to rural Illinois. Good homemade food would sell well. In the afternoon, Mrs. Roberts showed up at the gas station with a folder full of documents. Eleanor, I went to the county clerk's office. I have important news. They sat in a corner of the barn to talk privately. The farm is really yours. It's been registered in your name since your father's death. Richard never had any legal claim to it. So he committed a crime. Taking someone else's property and falsifying documents are serious crimes. You can sue him and demand hefty compensation. Eleanor held the papers with trembling hands. For 15 years, Richard had benefited from a property that was rightfully hers, lying and stealing what was hers by law. Mrs. Roberts, how much do you think he owes me? Walter said the farm brings in $3,000 a month after expenses. Over 15 years, that's more than $500,000. $500,000. It was more money than Eleanor had ever imagined having. But first, we need to officially notify him. Tomorrow we'll go to the lawyer. I don't have money to pay a lawyer. I've already taken care of that. Lawyer Michael is my nephew. He'll handle your case in exchange for a percentage of what we recover. That night, Eleanor barely slept, her mind racing. In 3 days, her life had turned upside down. From being an abandoned woman with 3 pigs, she was becoming the owner of a thriving farm with partnership offers coming from all sides. But part of her still doubted it was real. Richard had controlled her life for so long that she could hardly imagine true independence. The pigs seemed to sense her anxiety. The male stayed close to her all night, like a guard dog. The pregnant sow found a quiet corner of the barn, instinctively preparing for birth. The next morning, the lawyer arrived early at the gas station. Lawyer Michael was a young man, around 35, who had studied in the state capital and returned to work in the small town. Eleanor, reviewing the documents, your case is solid. Richard committed grand theft. He could face 2 to 5 years in prison. I don't want him to go to prison. I just want my property back and the money he owes me. I understand we can settle out of court. He returns the property, pays compensation, and you don't press criminal charges. How much compensation can I ask for? Considering the profits over the last 15 years, plus damages for the lies and abandonment, we can ask for $800,000. $800,000. The number was so high, it felt unreal. And if he refuses? Then we file criminal and civil lawsuits. With the documents we have, he'll lose badly in court. How long will it take? If he accepts the settlement, a week. If it goes to court, it could take 2 years. Eleanor thought for a moment. 2 years of legal battles would be exhausting, but maybe necessary for justice. Lawyer Michael, let's try the settlement first. If he refuses, we go to court. Perfect, I'll draft the notice today. Richard will have 48 hours to respond. After the lawyer left, Eleanor felt strangely calm. For the first time in months, she felt in control of her own life. Tyler arrived with news. Mrs. Eleanor, the pregnant sow is restless. I think she's going into labor. They rushed to the barn. The sow was panting, lying on her side, clearly in labor. Eleanor called Dr. Catherine, who arrived in half an hour. It's happening now, the vet confirmed. But it looks complicated. The first piglet is in the wrong position. What does that mean? I can try to adjust it or do a C-section. A C-section is safer, but it costs $500. What if we try adjusting it? It's risky. I could lose the mother and the piglets. Eleanor looked at the suffering sow. The animal trusted her, just as she had trusted Richard for so many years. She couldn't abandon it now. Do the C-section. I'll find a way to pay. Dr. Catherine worked for 2 hours. When she finished, she had saved the mother and 6 healthy piglets. Eleanor, you made the right choice. If we'd tried a natural birth, we likely would have lost them all. Watching the piglets nurse for the first time, Eleanor felt an indescribable emotion. It was like witnessing the birth of a new life, both for the animals and for herself. Doctor, I accept your offer about the inn, but on one condition. What? I want to learn everything about rural veterinary medicine. If I'm going to be a partner, I need to fully understand the business. Eleanor smiled. Deal. You can start Monday. 2 days later, lawyer Michael called with news. Eleanor, Richard wants to negotiate, but he's offering very little. How much? $200,000 and the farm. And you think that's too little? For the crimes he committed, it's pocket change. I could get much more in court. What if we propose $500,000, the farm, and he covers the veterinary treatment for the pigs? I'll try, but be ready for a fight. Richard hired an expensive lawyer from Chicago. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. Richard's response came the next day. He agreed to pay $400,000, return the farm, but refused to cover the veterinary treatments. It's a good offer, said lawyer Michael. I advise accepting it. I accept, Eleanor replied without hesitation. $400,000 was more money than she had ever imagined having. With that amount, she could invest in the inn with Dr. Catherine, improve the farm with Walter, and still have a good sum left for her security. The signing of the agreement was scheduled for the following week at the county clerk's office. Meanwhile, Eleanor began working with Dr. Catherine to organize the future inn. Dr. Catherine's property was in a beautiful mountainous area, with waterfalls, trails, and an incredible view of Dreamer's Ridge. They planned 5 rustic cabins, a restaurant with homemade food, and rural activities for guests. "Eleanor, your strength is definitely in the kitchen," Dr. Catherine said, after tasting a chicken pot pie she had prepared. "I've never eaten anything so delicious. It's my grandmother's recipe. She taught me almost everything I know. We should document these recipes. They could be the inn's unique selling point." During those weeks of work, Eleanor also visited her father's farm several times. Walter had further improved production. The cows were giving more milk, the hens laying more eggs, and he had started making artisanal cheeses. "Walter, once I officially take over the farm, I want to expand even more." "How so, Miss Eleanor?" "We could breed pigs, plant a larger organic garden, maybe even start agritourism." "Agritourism?" "Hosting city visitors to experience rural life. Dr. Catherine says many people pay well for that experience." Walter's eyes lit up with possibilities. "You have a vision for business. Your father would be proud." "I hope so. He always wanted this land to thrive." On the day of the agreement signing, Eleanor woke up with a mix of anxiety and excitement. She would finally see Richard face to face after weeks. Mrs. Roberts accompanied her to the county clerk's office. When they arrived, Richard was already there with his lawyer. He looked thinner and more worn than Eleanor remembered. His hair was grayer, and he avoided looking directly at her. "Eleanor," he greeted coldly. "Richard." The ceremony was quick and formal. Papers were signed, properties transferred, and a check for $400,000 changed hands. When it was all over, Richard approached her in the parking lot. "Eleanor, he began, but she interrupted. "You don't need to say anything, Richard. You made your choices, I made mine. Now we each go our own way." "Amber left me," he confessed, lowering his head. "When she found out I'd lose the farm, she ran off with someone else." "I'm sorry," Eleanor said, and surprisingly, she meant it. "You were always a good wife. I was the fool. We both were. But that's all in the past now." Richard got into his car and drove away. Eleanor watched until the vehicle disappeared around the corner. She felt a mix of relief and melancholy. Despite everything, that man had been part of her life for over 20 years. "And now?" asked Mrs. Roberts. "Now I'll go get my pigs and move forward with my life." The little piglets were 3 weeks old and growing fast. The sow had fully recovered from the C-section and was a devoted mother. The male and the other female were also healthy after treatment. Dr. Catherine had suggested using the pigs as an attraction at the inn, but Eleanor had decided to keep them on the farm. They had been her companions since the day of abandonment and deserved a special place in her new life. The inn Dreamer's Ridge opened 2 months later. The partnership between Eleanor and Dr. Catherine worked perfectly. Dr. Catherine handled the veterinary care and rural activities, while Eleanor managed the kitchen and administration. The restaurant became famous in the region for Eleanor's traditional recipes. Dishes like free-range chicken with green beans, homemade chicken pot pie, and creamy caramel sauce drew visitors even from Chicago. "Eleanor, we're fully booked for the next 3 months," Dr. Catherine announced one afternoon. "It's amazing how things have changed. You've changed. You're more confident, more decisive." It was true. Eleanor felt she had discovered a version of herself she never knew existed. For years, she had believed her only role was to serve Richard and take care of the house. Now she found she had a talent for business, leadership, and so much more. The farm also flourished under her new management. With Walter as an official partner, they had expanded to sheep, goats, and even a few horses. The production of artisanal cheeses became a significant source of income. "Mrs. Eleanor," Walter said one morning, "we've received an interesting offer." "What kind of offer?" "An organic farmers cooperative from Chicago wants to buy our products exclusively. They're offering 50% more than the usual price. And what's the catch? We'd have to certify everything as organic and increase production by 30%. Is it feasible? With some investments, yes. We'd need to hire 2 more people and buy some equipment. Eleanor thought for a moment. With every decision she made, she felt more confident in her abilities. Let's do it. But I want your daughters to be part of the business too. Walter had mentioned he had 2 daughters working in the city who wanted to return to the countryside. You're serious? Completely. This farm will be a real family business. 6 months after the inn's opening, Eleanor received an unexpected visit. It was Jennifer, her daughter, who had driven from Chicago with her husband and baby. "Mom!" Jennifer hugged her with tears in her eyes. "Why didn't you tell me what was happening?" "I didn't want to worry you, sweetheart. You were pregnant, had your own things to handle. But Mom, I found out everything from Dad. He came to see me last week, completely broken. How is he?" "Lost. He's living in a small apartment in the city, working as a salesman at a hardware store." Eleanor felt a pang of pity, but no regret. And Amber? She married a businessman from Indianapolis. He found out she was only interested in his money. "Jennifer, your father made his choices. I can't take responsibility for the consequences." "I know, Mom, and I'm proud of you. When I came here and saw everything you've built, it's incredible." During the 3-day visit, Jennifer helped in the inn's kitchen and was enchanted by her mother's new life. "Mom, you're glowing. You look 10 years younger." "I feel 10 years younger." "And those pigs Dad left behind?" "They're your baby's favorite attraction," Eleanor said, watching Jennifer's child playing near the pig pen. Truly, the pigs had become beloved figures on the farm. The piglets, now teenagers, were gentle and playful. The 2 older sows took turns caring for the young ones, as if they were an extended family. "Mum, can I ask you a personal question?" "Of course, sweetheart." "Do you miss Dad?" Eleanor thought before answering. "I miss the companionship, but I don't miss the marriage we had. It wasn't healthy for either of us." "Do you think about getting married again?" "I don't know. I'm focused on building my new life. If someone special comes along, we'll see." The someone special appeared unexpectedly a few months later. It was Dr. Robert, a retired 62-year-old veterinarian who came to stay at the inn for a vacation. Robert was a widower. He had lost his wife 2 years prior and was trying to rebuild his life. He was a kind, cultured man who loved talking about literature and farming. "Eleanor, can I help in the kitchen?" he offered one morning. "You know how to cook?" "I learned out of necessity. My wife always did everything, and when she passed, I had to figure things out." They spent the morning preparing a special lunch together for the guests. Robert was attentive, respectful, and had a gentle way of treating both people and animals. "Eleanor, you have an inspiring story," he said as they peeled potatoes. "Why?" "Turning tragedy into opportunity isn't something just anyone can do." "I'm not sure that's what happened. I think I just discovered who I really was after so many years of submission. That's exactly what makes your story special." Robert extended his stay by 2 weeks. Then he returned twice more in the following months. On his 3rd visit, he made a different proposal. "Eleanor, would you have dinner with me tonight? Not as a guest and hostess, but as Robert and Eleanor." Dinner was at a simple restaurant in town. They talked about their lives, dreams, fears, and hopes. "Robert, I need to be honest. I'm rebuilding my life, and I don't know if I have room for a relationship right now. I completely understand. I'm also relearning how to live. How about we take it slow? No pressure, just getting to know each other better." "I can do that." Their relationship blossomed naturally over the next few months. Robert began spending extended periods in the area, helping at the inn and on the farm. He was the complete opposite of Richard, respectful, affectionate, and genuinely interested in Eleanor's opinions. "Eleanor, have you ever thought about writing a cookbook?" Robert suggested one afternoon. "Who would buy a cookbook from me?" "Are you kidding? The guests are always asking for your recipes. And your story of overcoming adversity would sell very well." The idea made sense. Eleanor had developed many of her own recipes, blending family traditions with personal creativity. "I don't even know where to start." I can help. I have some contacts with publishers in Chicago. The book Flavors of Triumph, Recipes and the Story of a New Life was released a year later. It combined traditional recipes with Eleanor's personal journey of transformation. The launch was held at the inn itself, attended by food journalists, bloggers, and local farmers. It was an immediate success. "Eleanor, you're becoming a celebrity," Catherine teased. "Not a celebrity, just a woman who found her worth." The book truly took off. Within 6 months, it was in its 3rd printing, and Eleanor began receiving invitations to speak at events and appear on television shows. "Mum, you have to accept the invitation to Ellen Williams's show," Jennifer insisted during a phone call. "Sweetheart, I don't know if I'm ready for national television." "Mum, your story could inspire thousands of women going through what you went through." It was a convincing argument. Eleanor had received hundreds of letters from readers sharing similar stories of abandonment, betrayal, and fresh starts. She decided to accept the invitation. Her participation in the program became a turning point in her journey. She spoke about overcoming adversity, self-discovery, and the importance of never giving up on dreams. "Eleanor, what advice would you give to a woman going through what you experienced?" the host asked. "That she remembers the end of a relationship isn't the end of life. Sometimes it's the beginning of the life we truly deserve to live." The show had a huge impact. Eleanor received thousands of messages of support and gratitude. Many women shared how her story encouraged them to leave abusive relationships or start over after significant losses. 2 years after Richard left her, Eleanor celebrated the inn's anniversary. Dreamer's Ridge was now recognized as one of the best in rural Illinois, winning awards for rural tourism and cuisine. The farm also thrived. Walter and his daughters had turned the property into a model for organic farming, producing cheeses, cured meats, preserves, and even artisanal wines. "Eleanor, I have a special gift for you," said Robert, approaching with a small box. "What gift?" "A proposal." He knelt before her, opening the box to reveal a simple yet elegant ring. "Eleanor, you taught me it's never too late for a fresh start. Will you marry me?" The proposal happened in front of all the guests, staff, and friends at the party. Eleanor looked around at the smiling faces of people who had become her chosen family. "Robert, I accept, but on one condition." "What?" "The ceremony will be here, at the farm, with our pigs as witnesses." The shared laughter sealed the moment. It was exactly the kind of wedding that represented Eleanor's new life, authentic, joyful, and full of real love. The ceremony took place 3 months later, on a sunny autumn afternoon. Jennifer came from Chicago with her family, Mrs. Roberts was the matron of honor, and the pigs actually participated in the celebration, adorned with colorful bows. During their vows, Eleanor spoke about finding someone who loved her for who she was, not for who she could become to please others. "Robert, you taught me that true love is partnership, not submission. It's growing together, not diminishing one person to lift another. Eleanor, you showed me that courage isn't the absence of fear, but acting despite it. Thank you for letting me be part of your journey." After the ceremony, as she watched guests enjoying themselves in the farmyard, Eleanor remembered that terrible afternoon when Richard left her on the roadside with 3 pigs. Back then, it felt like the end of the world. Now she saw it had been the start of her true life. The original 3 pigs were there, plump and happy, surrounded by a large brood. They had become symbols of fertility and prosperity in the region. "You know you were my guardian angels, don't you?" she whispered, offering them special treats. The biggest pig, the one who had nuzzled her leg that first day, approached again. This time, Eleanor felt no despair, only deep gratitude. "Thank you for staying with me when everyone else left." 6 months after the wedding, Eleanor received an unexpected call. It was Richard. "Eleanor, can we talk?" "Of course, Richard. What do you need?" "I wanted to apologize. Truly this time." "Richard, that's all in the past." "No, let me say this. I watched you on TV, read your book, heard about everything you've achieved, and I realized how blind I was." "Richard, you were always special, Eleanor. I was just too foolish to see it. I destroyed the best thing in my life chasing illusions. We both needed to find our own paths. You found yours. I'm still looking for mine. You'll find it, Richard. It's never too late for a fresh start. Eleanor, can you forgive me? I forgave you long ago. Holding on to grudges only hurts the one who holds them. Thank you. I'm glad you're happy. After hanging up, Eleanor grew thoughtful. Her forgiveness had been sincere. She truly no longer held any resentment toward Richard. The anger had been replaced by indifference and eventually compassion. Robert found her on the porch, watching the sunset over the mountains. What are you thinking about, love? How funny life is. 3 years ago, I thought my story was over. Today, I know it was just beginning. And what a beautiful story it's been. The most amazing part is that it all started with 3 pigs no one wanted. It's not that no one wanted them. They were just waiting for the right person. Eleanor smiled, taking Robert's hand. You know what I'm proudest of in all this? What? It wasn't luck. It was hard work, courage, and the decision not to give up when everything seemed lost. That's the Eleanor I fell in love with. That night, as they walked the farm before bed, Eleanor stopped in front of the pig pen. The family had grown considerably, but the original 3 were still the patriarchs of the group. Robert, can I confess something? Of course. Sometimes I talk to them. I tell them about my day, share my worries. And do they answer? In their own way, yes, they comfort me just by being there. Robert hugged her from behind, kissing her hair. Eleanor, do you know the most beautiful part of your story? What? You didn't change who you were. You just discovered who you'd always been. 5 years after the abandonment, Eleanor stood on the same stretch of road where it all began. But now, she wasn't alone. Beside her were Robert, Jennifer with her children, Walter and his family, Catherine, Mrs. Roberts, and dozens of others who had become important in her life. They were unveiling a commemorative marker, a small bronze sculpture of a woman with 3 pigs. The plaque read, "Here, a new life began." Dedicated to all women who find strength in adversity. Mum, would you like to say a few words? Jennifer asked. Eleanor looked at all the smiling faces around her. She thought of the discouraged, frightened woman who had stood in that exact spot 5 years earlier. I want to thank everyone who's been part of this journey, especially the 3 pigs who taught me that family isn't just who you're born with, but who chooses to stand by you in hard times. She paused, emotional. And to any woman who might be listening, it's never too late for a fresh start. Never too late to discover your own worth. Sometimes, what feels like the end is just the beginning of the life you've always deserved. Applause echoed down the rural road. As it faded, a familiar grunt was heard. The original 3 pigs had been brought to the ceremony and seemed to approve of the speech. They always get the last word, Eleanor joked, drawing laughter. That evening, during the celebration at the inn, Eleanor received a special surprise, a telegram from Jennifer, who now lived nearby again, working as a veterinarian alongside Catherine. Mom, you're pregnant again. Everyone laughed at the joke, but Eleanor understood the real meaning. She was pregnant with projects, dreams, and possibilities. Every day brought new ways to grow and contribute to her community. Recently, she'd started a social initiative offering cooking and entrepreneurship classes for women in vulnerable situations. The Fresh Start Project had already graduated 3 groups, with several students opening their own businesses. Eleanor, one graduate said during the party, you saved my life. How so, Jessica? I was in an abusive relationship with no prospects and no self-esteem. Your example showed me it was possible to start over. You saved your own life, Jessica. I just shared my experience. Conversations like this happened often. Eleanor had become a regional reference for women seeking independence and personal renewal. The book was already in its 10th edition and had been translated into other languages. The royalties were invested in the social project and the expansion of the organic farm. Love, said Robert, approaching. The paperwork for our new foundation's registration just arrived. The 3 Pigs Foundation would officially launch the following month, focusing on rural women's entrepreneurship and sustainable family farming. Do you think my father would approve? Eleanor asked. looking at an old photo of him she kept in the living room. I'm sure he would. He always dreamed this land would help many people. And it is, in ways he could never have imagined. That night, before bed, Eleanor took her usual evening walk to the pig pen. It was a ritual she'd kept for years, a way to give thanks and reflect on each day. The pigs greeted her with affectionate grunts. Some of the younger piglets came closer, seeking affection. "You know you're the reason for all this, don't you?" she said, stroking the largest pig. "If Richard hadn't left me with you, I'd never have discovered my true strength." The animal pressed its head against her hand, as it always did. A simple gesture, but one that deeply comforted Eleanor. "Tomorrow, we start building the new pavilion for the workshops. We'll be able to host 50 women per class." She told the pigs about her future plans, as if they were old friends sharing dreams. And in a way, that's exactly what they were. When she returned home, she found Robert reading on the porch. "How are our advisors?" he joked. "They approved all the new projects." "They're wise. They always choose the right people to follow." Eleanor nestled beside her husband, watching the stars in the clear rural Illinois sky. "Robert, sometimes I'm afraid this is all a dream." "Why?" "Because it's too good to be true. After so many years of suffering, it feels unreal to be this happy." "Eleanor, you deserve every bit of this happiness. You worked hard, faced your fears, helped so many people. This joy was earned." "You're right. And you know what else?" "What?" "This is just the beginning. We still have many years ahead to build amazing things together." The thought of a future with Robert filled Eleanor with excitement. They shared similar values, compatible dreams, and a mature love built on mutual respect. "Robert, can I confess something?" "Always." "I'm grateful to Richard." "How so?" "If he hadn't abandoned me, I'd never have discovered who I really am. I'd never have found you, never have helped so many people." That's an interesting way to see things. Life has those ironies. Sometimes our greatest gift comes disguised as our deepest pain. 3 months later, at the official launch of the Three Pigs Foundation, Eleanor was nervous. The mayor, state representatives, journalists, and members of various NGOs had all confirmed their attendance. "Mom, you look beautiful," said Jennifer, adjusting her mother's necklace. Eleanor wore a navy blue dress, elegant yet simple. She'd lost 80 pounds since being abandoned, not through extreme diets, but through physical work and genuine happiness. "Jennifer, do you think I'll manage to speak well?" "Mum, you've spoken on national television, given dozens of talks. This is just one more. But this one is special. It's Grandpa's dream coming true." The ceremony was emotional. Eleanor told her story once more, but this time focusing on the lessons she'd learned and the opportunities to help other women. "The Three Pigs Foundation isn't about me," she said to the audience. "It's about all the women who believe they deserve a second chance, a dignified life, a fresh start full of hope." The applause was warm and prolonged. In the front row, the original Three Pigs watched everything from a special pen set up just for them. They were the true stars of the ceremony. After the official speeches, the presentations began for the first projects to be funded by the foundation. Microloans for rural entrepreneurs, vocational training, psychological support for women who were victims of domestic violence. "Eleanor," the mayor said during the cocktail hour, "you've become the greatest symbol of resilience in our region." "Thank you, but I don't want to be a symbol. I want to be proof that it's possible, so other women can believe it's possible for them too. That's exactly what makes you special." During the celebration, Eleanor received an unexpected surprise. It was Amber, the former secretary who had run off with Richard. "Eleanor, can I talk to you?" "Of course, Amber." They stepped away from the crowd to speak privately. "I want to apologize," Amber said, clearly embarrassed. "You don't have to." "Yes, I do. I destroyed your marriage, caused unnecessary pain." "Amber, my marriage had been broken for years. You were just the final straw. But still..." "Amber, can I give you some advice?" "Of course." "Stop punishing yourself for past choices. Use this experience to make better decisions in the future. How can you be so generous? Because I've learned that holding on to bitterness only poisons the one who holds it. I'd rather use my energy to build good things." Amber walked away, visibly relieved. Eleanor realized that forgiveness truly frees the one who forgives far more than the one who is forgiven. The foundation's first year was an absolute success. 50 women received microloans to start businesses, 200 completed vocational courses, and hundreds were supported by the Psychological Aid Project. "Eleanor, the results have exceeded all expectations," Dr. Catherine said during a board meeting. "That's because we're working with something we know firsthand, the pain of feeling worthless and the joy of discovering our own strength. Women trust you because they know you've been through what they have, and because they know if I could do it, so can they." Around this time, Eleanor also began writing her second book, Recipes for a Fresh Start: How to Turn Pain into Purpose. The book would combine more culinary recipes with stories of women who had overcome adversity through the Foundation's projects. "Robert, do you think people will be interested in a second book?" "Eleanor, your first book changed thousands of lives. I'm certain the second will be even more impactful." "I just don't want it to seem like I'm exploiting my own story." "You're not exploiting it. You're sharing tools for transformation with those who need them." The launch of the second book coincided with the 6th anniversary of the abandonment. Eleanor decided to mark the date with a special celebration at the farm. "Mum, do you really want to celebrate the day Dad left you?" Jennifer asked, puzzled. "Sweetheart, I want to celebrate the day my real life began." The party brought together hundreds of people, former students from the courses, guests from the inn, partner farmers, foundation staff. It was the extended family Eleanor had built over the years. During her speech, she held the microphone in front of the pig pen. "Exactly 6 years ago, I was on this same farm, but in a completely different situation. I'd been abandoned by someone who was supposed to love me, had no money, no prospects. Just 3 pigs for company." She pointed to the animals, who seemed to understand the significance of the moment. "These 3 beings taught me the most important lessons of my life. Loyalty, resilience, and that family is whoever stands by us in tough times." The largest pig approached the fence as if wanting to join the speech. "They showed me that even when all seems lost, there's always a way to start fresh. That our true legacy isn't what others leave us, but what we build with our own hands." The applause mingled with the pigs' grunts, creating a unique symphony of approval. That's why today, I'm not celebrating an abandonment. I'm celebrating a reunion with myself, with my worth, with my ability to turn pain into love, suffering into service. After the celebration, Eleanor and Robert walked through the farm, taking in all that had been built. "Darling, have you ever thought about how many lives were touched because of that terrible day? I think about it often. It's almost as if we needed to go through that pain to help so many people." Maybe we did. Sometimes life's plans are bigger than we can imagine. They stopped in front of a sign placed at the farm's entrance. William Johnson Rural Property, established in 1945, renewed in 2019 through love, hard work, and determination. "Your father would be proud," Robert said. "I hope so. He always said this land had the potential to help many people. And it is, in ways he could never have imagined." At the end of that special evening, Eleanor took her ritual walk to the pigs. She was tired but deeply satisfied. "My friends," she said to the animals, "thank you for walking with me on this incredible journey." The pigs moved closer, as they always did. It was a moment of silent communion, yet deeply meaningful. "You know you're the real heroes of this story, right? Without you, none of this would have happened." The largest pig rested its head in her hand, a gesture repeated thousands of times over the years. It was his way of saying he'd always be there, no matter what. Tomorrow, we start another project, the Rural School for Children of Organic Farmers. It's going to be beautiful. She shared her future plans with the pigs, as she did every night. It was her moment of gratitude and reflection. Returning home, she found Robert waiting on the porch with 2 cups of tea. "How are our advisors tonight?" "They approved all the new projects, as always." "They're wise. They recognize a good leader when they see one." Eleanor nestled beside her husband, gazing at the distant city lights. Robert, do you think our story will have a happy ending? Eleanor, our story is already happy. Every day we live together, every person we help, every dream we fulfill. That's a happy ending. You're right. I was thinking of endings like in movies, where everything is resolved and perfect forever. Real life is better than movies. In movies, the story ends at the wedding. In real life, marriage is just the start of a new adventure. And what an adventure it's been. And it will keep being one. We still have many years ahead to build amazing things together. 7 years after that fateful day on the dusty road, Eleanor woke on her 60th birthday. The day would be marked by a special ceremony, the opening of the Johnson Rural School, built on the farm in honor of her father. The school would serve children of local farmers, offering elementary education focused on sustainable agriculture, entrepreneurship, and environmental preservation. "Mom, are you ready for your big day?" asked Jennifer, who now lived permanently in the area with her family. More than ready, excited. Eleanor wore a red dress, the same color as the outfit she'd worn on the day of abandonment. But now the color symbolized strength, passion, and rebirth. The school ceremony was attended by the state governor, who came personally to inaugurate the project. During his speech, he mentioned Eleanor's story as an example of resilience and social contribution. Eleanor Williams represents the best of the Illinois spirit: hard work, solidarity, and the ability to turn adversity into opportunities for the entire community. When it was her turn to speak, Eleanor was emotional but confident. This school isn't just a building where children will study. It's the realization of a dream that started with 3 pigs on a dusty road. She told her story once more, but this time focusing on the lessons she wanted to pass on to the younger generations. "I want the children who study here to learn that it doesn't matter where they come from or what hardships they face. With work, determination, and love, they can transform their lives and the life of their community." The school was officially inaugurated with each child planting a tree. Eleanor planted the first sapling, an apple tree like the ones she played under as a child. "This tree will grow alongside your dreams," she told the children, "and when you're adults, you'll see how a tiny seed can become something big and strong." After the official ceremony, there was a celebration at the farm with traditional dishes prepared by Eleanor and her team. It was her trademark, turning formal events into warm, family-like gatherings. During the party, she received a special surprise. Her oldest grandson, now 8 years old, had prepared a speech. "Grandma, you're my hero, not because you're famous or rich, but because you teach us to help each other and never give up on our dreams." The boy's speech moved everyone present. Eleanor realized her story had become a family legacy that would be passed down for generations. At the end of the day, when all the guests had left, Eleanor took her usual walk to the pig pen. This time, she was accompanied by Robert, Jennifer, and her grandchildren. "Kids, I want to introduce you to the real reason you have everything here," she said, pointing to the original 3 pigs. "Grandma, why are the pigs responsible?" asked the youngest granddaughter. "Because they taught me that family isn't just who you're born with, it's who chooses to stay with you through hard times." The children were fascinated by the story. To them, it was almost like a fairy tale. The grandmother who was abandoned with 3 pigs and built an empire of love and solidarity. "Grandma, are you going to write more books?" asked her grandson. "Maybe. How about you help me with the next one?" "We could make a children's storybook." "About what?" "About 3 magical pigs who turn sadness into joy." The idea excited the children. Eleanor realized she had found her next project, children's literature, with messages of resilience and hope. That evening, during family dinner, Robert made a special toast. "A toast to the bravest woman I know. Eleanor, you turned your pain into purpose, your loneliness into community, your abandonment into an embrace for hundreds of people." "A toast to the 3 pigs!" the children shouted in unison, sparking laughter all around. "Yes, a toast to the 3 pigs," Eleanor agreed. "They taught me we're never truly alone when we have the courage to open our hearts." After dinner, when the children had gone to bed, Eleanor and Robert sat on the porch to talk about the future. "Darling, what's the next dream we'll make come true?" Robert asked. I'm thinking of expanding the project to other states. There are so many women across the country who could benefit from what we've learned here. That's an ambitious idea. Maybe. But I've learned that big dreams are just small dreams that grew with dedication and hard work. And we have all the necessary structure, experience, resources, a committed team. And more importantly, we know it works. We've already helped hundreds of women restart their lives. They talked late into the night about expansion plans. The Three Pigs Foundation could become a national network supporting rural women entrepreneurs. Eleanor, have you ever stopped to think about how many lives were changed because of that terrible day? I think about it every day. It's almost surreal to imagine something so painful could create so much good. That's the power of transformation. You took your pain and turned it into healing for others. Not just me. Every woman we've helped has also transformed her pain. It's a virtuous cycle, and a cycle that will keep spreading. In the early hours, Eleanor woke up and decided to take a walk around the farm. It was something she did when she needed to process important moments. The property was quiet, lit only by the full moon. She walked through the orchards, the vegetable garden, the pens, remembering every step of the transformation. She stopped in front of the small house where Walter lived with his family. Through the window, she could see the faint light of the room where one of his daughters was likely studying. Now enrolled in veterinary school with a scholarship from the foundation. She continued to the inn, where a few windows were still lit. Guests who might be having their own moments of reflection and renewal. Finally, she reached the pig pen. The animals slept peacefully, but the largest pig lifted its head when it sensed her approach. "Can't sleep either," she whispered to him. The animal stood and walked to the fence, pressing its snout into her hand as it always did. Today was a special day, wasn't it? Grandpa's school finally exists. She stayed there for a few minutes in silence, simply grateful for everything she had lived through. "You know what makes me happiest?" she said to the pig. "It's not the fame, not the money, not the awards. It's knowing our story gave other women the courage to start over." The pig grunted softly, as if agreeing. "And you know what else? We're not done yet. There's still so much work ahead." When she returned home, she found Robert awake, making coffee in the kitchen. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked. "Too much on my mind. Today was intense." "And how are our nighttime advisors?" They approved the new plans, as always. They drank coffee together while watching the sunrise through the kitchen window. It was a ritual they'd developed over the years, simple moments of intimacy and connection. "Robert, can I confess something?" "Always. Sometimes I'm still afraid of losing all this." "Why?" "Because it's too good to be true. After so many years of suffering, it feels unreal to be this fulfilled." "Eleanor, you built all this with your own hands. It's not luck, it's merit." "Maybe you're right. I'm sure. And you know what else?" "What?" "Even if we lost everything materially, you'd still be the same brave woman who discovered her own worth. No one can take that away." Robert's words touched Eleanor deeply. It was true. Her greatest achievement wasn't material possessions, but the discovery of her own strength and capability. "Thank you for reminding me. That's what husbands are for, to remind our wives how special they are." Just then they heard a noise from the pig pen. It was the time of year when new piglets were born, and it seemed one of the sows was going into labor. "Shall we?" Robert asked. "Let's go." They headed to the pig pen where they found one of the original pig's daughters giving birth. It was a cycle that repeated regularly, but it never failed to move Eleanor. "Look," Robert whispered, "a new generation coming into the world." "It's beautiful, isn't it? Life always finds a way to go on, to renew itself." They watched the birth of 6 healthy piglets. The mother cleaned them tenderly and guided them to nurse. "Do you know what this means?" asked Eleanor. "What?" "That our story continues. Every new life born here carries a bit of this place's transformative energy. And it carries a bit of you, too." Eleanor smiled, watching the piglets jostle for a spot to nurse. "Robert, I think I already know what my next project will be. What? A documentary. The full story of the Three Pigs Foundation, from abandonment to now. To inspire more women and show that transformation is possible. That's a brilliant idea. Your story needs to reach as many people as possible. And we can use the documentary's earnings to expand the projects even further. They spent the rest of the early morning talking about the idea, planning how it would be made, which stories to include, and how to ensure it reached the audience who needed its message most. When the sun rose completely, Eleanor felt energized and full of purpose. Once again, the pigs had been the catalyst for a new idea, a new project. Robert, do you know the biggest lesson I've learned from all this? What? That our true legacy isn't the things we receive, but what we leave behind for the world. And what a beautiful legacy you're leaving. What a beautiful legacy we're leaving. Eleanor looked around the farm that now housed the school, the inn, the foundation's headquarters, and the social projects. It had all started with 3 pigs on a dusty road. You know, Robert, now I completely understand what Richard meant when he said the pigs were my legacy. How so? He thought he was giving me the worst possible gift. In truth, he gave me the best gift of my life, the chance to discover who I really was. Sometimes the greatest gifts come disguised as the greatest challenges. Exactly. And I chose to turn that gift into something beautiful for so many people. Just then, they heard voices coming from the direction of the school. The first children were arriving for another day of classes. "Shall we greet them?" Robert suggested. "Let's. After all, they're the future of all this." They walked hand in hand toward the school, where the children greeted them with smiles and hugs. "Mrs. Eleanor, tell us another story about the pigs," a little girl asked. "Of course, sweetheart. But first, let's focus on your studies. Stories are for dessert. Which story will you tell today?" Eleanor looked at Robert, then at the eager children, and finally at the pigs watching from a distance. "Today, I'll tell the story of how 3 animals taught a woman that it's never too late to start over, and how that woman used that lesson to help many others start over too. Is it a true story?" "The truest of all," Eleanor replied, smiling. "It's our story." End of story. Now, tell me what you thought of this story and where you're watching from. If you have something to share with us, leave your heartfelt words in the comments. Do you believe Eleanor made the right decisions? We'd love to read your thoughts. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other inspiring stories.